Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting firm Riderflex. If you enjoyed today's guest interview, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the Riderflex podcast. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Chris Dreyer on the Riderflex podcast. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
I like that mic, man. What is that? What kind of mic is that?
This is me copying Joe Rogan. I'm not even sure here.
Love it.
Sure, Mike. And I've got the Focusrite set up too.
Focusrite. What is that? Is that like an amp or an amplifier?
Yep.
What is that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it cleans it up a lot. I'm a huge advocate. I was a little stubborn at the beginning. My first 40 or so of my own podcast until I got one and I was like, oh, it is way better.
It sounds freaking great. Can you, what's it called? Focus what?
Focusrite. It's a Scarlet Focusrite. Little red
Scarlet?
box. Yeah, it is amazing.
And so what is it? It's the mic runs to it and the box runs to your laptop or whatever. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's got all the gain stuff. Getting that set's a whole different, skill of its own that I worked with an audio team, but it's really helpful.
When I first ordered my new mic and my fancy Sony camera, I'm like, okay, I don't know how to do any of this shit. So I had to call a guy. I had to have a friend come over and hook it all up for me. And now I'm afraid to touch anything. I don't want to mess with anything because I'm not a tech savvy guy when it comes to setting that up. Anyway, sounds good. I like your setup.
Cool.
Hey, before we get into business and the fact that you're an SEO expert and all the things you guys do, before we get into that, I want to know about Chris Dreyer, the person. Give me mom, dad, siblings, where you grew up. Give me some of that if you don't mind.
Geez, I grew up in a little town called Elkville. My high school graduating class had 28 people. Mom was a retired cook and hustler. She, cleaned houses. She did the weekend like craft stuff. Was always doing a side job on top of cooking. And then my dad has an engineering degree. Was an engineer for a while when I was young, but then in order to like settle and be around my mom's parents, he got a job as a postal carrier, and he retired for the U.S. Postal Service. And he worked every overtime hour his entire life. Very, very hard workers, blue collar, just very hard workers. Got a sister. She owns a plumbing company.
Oh,
Every time I think I'm doing really well, I get to compare against Sis. She's a couple years younger than me, but her company is way bigger. I think they do, they'll probably do 40, 50 million.
what?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
And by the way, a female owned plumbing company is super rare. Right? Why? Because it's usually a guy that owns it. That's awesome. Okay. Wow. 50 million in revenue as a plumbing company. Where's that at? Is that near Chicago or is that bigger?
No, that's Southern Illinois. And it's a combination of commercial, residential. She does sheet metal. They do HVAC.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it's not just plumbing, but that's how I refer to it.
You want to give the company name a plug here on the podcast?
Yeah, sure. It's A&W Plumbing.
A&W Plumbing. Okay, very good. Well, congratulations, sis, if you're listening to this later on after we launch. By the way, where is Elkville?
So it's near Southern Illinois University. Southern Illinois University is in Carbondale, Illinois, and it's about 15 minutes away from Carbondale. Super, super. I mean, there's like a gas station and a Dollar General. That's about it.
Okay. You said 28 people in your graduating class. So that's pretty damn small. So I'm assuming your parents separated early, divorced early when you were small?
No. Married. Yep. Still married.
Oh, I thought, okay. You were saying he moved back to be close to, you said moved back to be. Okay.
when he was an engineer, he was having to be on the road all the time. And, so he would stay in different locations, and just to have like more stable foundation, kind of took
Oh,
the local job. Yeah.
they're both still married, huh?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Still
They've probably
kicking,
been,
both of them.
how about that? All right. Good for them. All right. You married, kids? What's your personal life? Yeah. Give it to us.
Yeah. Married. My wife, Jenna, we just had our first baby, 10-month-old Gray. And we're having a
Congratulations.
lot of fun with Gray. Super healthy, super fun. And it's different. It's different. When I was single, before married, I had all this time. Then I got married, had less time. And now they have a kid. It's like I don't have any time at all.
It's amazing, right? How fast and when you got a 10-month-old, it's like, oh, while I'm watching him this afternoon, I'll also do this, this, and this. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. And then you turn your eyes for like 2 seconds, and they're like opening things. They're getting it, just who knows. And it's like, you think you have everything baby proof, but then they
Yeah.
just discover something else to
That's,
destroy. So yeah,
yeah.
part of the game, but it's fun.
Congratulations on the first kid. How'd you meet your wife?
So my best friend, it was, is her first cousin.
Okay.
So we happened to be around each other at like family events and things like that, where I was hanging out with my buddy Bryce.
Mm.
And I know we'll probably talk about this entrepreneurial journey, but I moved away to Florida and came back, and 'cause she's 9 years younger than me, and the age difference, and I'm much older, is not this big thing anymore. And we just kind of reconnected, and we already knew each other's families. It was really easy, and just got along really well. And the rest of the story, it's just kind of how it went.
Wow. So what is she, like 19?
She is, geez, what is she? She's 31,
Okay.
31, and I'm 40. So, 40, 31, not that big a deal. But, when you're in high school and I'm 18 and she's 9, that's, you're not even thinking about, so I knew her, but it's like, I go away, and I was, let's see, 30, I think I was 36 when we reconnected.
Okay.
And yeah, so it was a little different. It was
her dad at first? Was her dad like, no? Was her dad
no,
like,
he knew my parents really well. So it was like,
Okay.
he was both family, both our parents were very for it. And
okay.
and we get along really well. In fact, we just went on a long a little vacation, not a little wedding vacation. We drove to Atlanta. We get along well.
Very good. Okay. Awesome. All right. What kind of kid were you in high school? Were you wild? Were you conservative? Were you like at the sheriff's office? Are you at the library? Where are you at in the mix there, Chris?
So junior high school, I was really into sports, baseball, basketball. I was a top basketball player, as captain of our conference.
Cool.
Really into sports, really dedicated to that. And
Are you a big guy? What size are you?
so in high school, I was, 186 pounds, 6'2". I'm like 280 now, right? So I was a point guard.
6'2" in a 6'2" in a small town. Yeah, you were a bigger kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And junior high, high school, was a good kid. Got good grades, took all, when I went to college, still got decent grades, but wasn't as good a kid. It was the rebellious streak, the maybe partying a little bit. And
well, of course, because when you went to Southern Illinois, from Elkville, you're like, oh, wow, I haven't
what is
seen
this
that
other
before.
world? There's people.
You
Right.
walk into the room, there's drugs on the table, there's naked chicks dancing on the bed, and you're like, wow, this is a whole different world.
Yeah, it was different for sure. And especially Southern Illinois, SIU, they're known to be a party school, and there's not a lot to do other
Right.
than just go to people's houses or hanging out. You got to kind of create your own entertainment, as opposed to having events and local things to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Well, what were you going to do? Be a history teacher?
So I started off in, computer science, and I just didn't have the patience.
You partied too much. You fell out of those classes.
Well, I didn't. I actually got all the math stuff, and I'm like, this isn't for me though. And I was, being a few years in, and my parents are paying for it, and I'm just like, geez, I got to get a degree. I'm spending all my parents' money. So I was like, well, I love basketball. Maybe I'll be a professional coach. Maybe I'll do, some collegiate coaching. And
Okay.
so I ended up getting my history education degree with no intention of really teaching, but more to take the
I see.
coaching route.
I see.
I did end up getting a job at a high school, and I became their junior varsity coach. Actually, in a pretty competitive spot to get that
Okay.
early on, and did really well. And then that's kind of but when this was happening, it was like I was discovering this entrepreneur side that kind of took over.
How'd that happen? Where'd that pivot happen? Yeah, you can talk to me.
Yeah. I've always, so before I even went to college, I said, hey, mom and dad, I knew this before I even went to college. I said, I'm gonna go to college, but I want to own my own business at some point. And so I had that already in mind.
Okay.
And I had a really successful uncle. It was an entrepreneur, just major up, super, just very prestigious, very successful. So I always kind of looked up to him and saw kind of what was possible around me.
Okay.
And yeah, when I got so basically I got this job at a high school, and I was their coach, and I had all this downtime in a detention room. And there was, the kids would do their homework, and you have all this downtime where it's just nothing to do. So I did the worst thing ever, right? I Googled how to make money online. And after finding all the spammer things, I took a few courses and learned the basics, the basis of digital marketing. I took this course, like how to make your first $10. That gave me the information I needed to pursue this on my own, to learn on my own through forums, through courses, through things like that. Because back then there wasn't a million Udemy's and YouTube and all this stuff. It was like you had to know a guy, or there was like one person teaching it. So it was a lot of discovery. But by the end of my second year teaching, I was making about 4 times as much on the side gig that I was teaching.
There you go.
And that's kind of the rest is written. And, I went all in and kind of pursued that path.
I see. That's how the pivot happened. Then you went to the high school head coach and you said, hey man, I got to go. See ya.
Yeah. And, I was friends with everyone, and I knew the head coach too, that it wasn't a scenario where I was going to get the head coaching job. He was a good coach, great reputation. So it's like, okay, maybe I could go somewhere else and get a head coaching job, because you need the experience there. Then you move up to collegiate level, then you get an assistant position. And it's kind of, it's just like anything. You got to have these stepping stones to work your way up the ladder. Sometimes it happens quicker for other people, but you got to put in the work. And I knew that it was going to be a long haul to go up the ladder. So
great. And then at some point, then pretty quickly after that, you got the job at Amazon.
So I was an Amazon Associates affiliate member. So I was Amazon Associates. So I had about 100 websites. I was in their affiliate program. I think I was making like, I don't know, 16-ish thousand a month or so.
Wow.
Through that and through other affiliates. And I had a Lose a Double Chin site. I ranked #1 for Double Chin for like 3 years. I had a stained concrete floor site. I bought an equestrian horse riding manuscript from an author and published it on Kindle Direct Publishing. Did really well on that. They just wanted their name attributed to it. I had a generator site that when all the big hurricanes and everything hit, all my generators on the site sold out. I just had a ton of little sites producing 2,000 here, 3,000 here, and a couple times had really big days on those too.
Very nice. And you became an what I call early expert on getting your organic rankings to be on page 1.
Yes, indeed. Content marketing and SEO. And I've stayed in that lane. I think now that I have an agency and we're going to transition to that, I know we're going to make that leap, but I've become a better marketer, a more well-rounded marketer through other strategies, but definitely have stayed with SEO and content marketing since then.
When you were doing that affiliate stuff for Amazon, were you thinking, this is great money, but I'm going to open an agency? I'm going to open an agency.
No, I wasn't. I was thinking, hey, I'm going to have 1,000 sites. I'm just going to go. And I just got wrecking balled around 2013. I think it was that first Penguin algorithm. I was not doing things from an evergreen perspective, and I was kind of spreading myself too thin. I was taking, if you wear those SEO guys who talk about white, gray, and black hat, I was wearing probably the black hat, I would say, in most definitions. And it was working though. And it wasn't like the things that I were doing were not like illegal, or it was just things that just wouldn't stand the test of time, right? Writing thin content that didn't cover something to the full scope that it needed to be covered, or getting backlinks from neighborhoods that maybe weren't the most trusted websites, and those kind of tactics. Google did a good job of nuking them. I think overall it improved the overall experience of Google, the consumer search results, because, honestly, should me, a history education teacher, have a website that ranks #1 for double chin? I'm not a physician. I was researching that content. I should never rank that in a million years. My stained concrete floor site, I never stained concrete floors in my life, and I rank #1 for that. I rank #1 for acai fruit before I even ate acai fruit.
Okay.
So that's the kind of stuff that, I could rank with just basic content, because that information wasn't out there. But now look at today. I mean, there's trillions of web pages, and like, content has to be good.
Yeah, I get pinged every single day from agencies saying that, we can make your rankings better.
Yeah.
I mean, every day, bro, I get that because Riderflex, as you probably know, our day job is we're a recruiting firm, a recruiting and staffing firm, right? And so every day I get that. But okay. All right. So you're moving along, you're doing this. All right. You hit a little bit of a speed bump there. And then what? Walk us into the transition of the agency now. And for the listeners, by the way, the company is Rankings and the website is rankings.io. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
I don't know how you got rankings.io URL. I don't know how the hell you got that. I can't. Did you have to buy that? Was that actually available?
Yeah, it was, during the early top level domains, those little 2 characters. Obviously, I'd love to have the .com or the .co, but
whatever.
The .com's probably a few $1 million, because then you're competing with all the sporting websites.
But anyway, walk us through the transition for Rankings. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the income nuked. It went from like 16K down to like 2K. And at the time, I wasn't the entrepreneur, the investor, the saver.
You were having fun.
I was having fun. I was buying stuff and spending money. I'm like, oh, I got to make more money. I got more expenses now. So I got on a Craigslist back in the day when Craigslist was a better resource for jobs. And I just typed the word SEO and just applied to every single SEO position. I even hit their filter where I had to wait a few days before I could continue to send emails, which is weird. They had some blocker.
I didn't even know they had that. I didn't even know they had that.
I ended up getting hired from an agency in Clayton, Missouri, as an SEO specialist, but I also got hired because for a few consulting roles. So I ended up taking 3 positions. And what I was doing is I built a team for my affiliate marketing so I could do all 3 positions, because 2 of them were more output results oriented. I didn't need to be, clocking in and doing daily stand-ups and all this stuff. They just, hey, do this audit for me type of thing. Right. And I was having my team do it and I was overseeing it. But at the agency, I ended up rising to be their top guy on the delivery, the ops side. And geez, I saw what not to do. The agency was power advocates. Owners are super nice, but they just weren't investing into it like a long-term business. They didn't understand SEO and the resources that were needed to really serve the client. And so I think it's the classic, you know, they were quoting $1,000, $2,000 a month, and the clients weren't getting much. They didn't have the resources, you know, the money to give resources to me. So I had like 30 clients, 40 clients, something like that, with no team. And so, you know, I managed. That's where I learned processes. That's where I learned high output for your time. And I had to get really creative with the things that I had to do, just from reporting and everything on the managing time. So that really leveled up my time management skills at that
Gotcha.
job.
Gotcha. Okay. And so the business kind of started not by accident, but I mean, that's how it started, because you started taking on consulting clients, and then you're like, okay, well, hell, I don't have time to actually work on those. So let me get this junior guy over here. Let me get Johnny to help me. And then what, it just grew from there. And then at some point you're like, I guess I better name this thing. I guess I better file an LLC for this thing.
Well, no. So at that time, I was working for someone else. So those were all their clients. Right. And I was,
but I thought you had a couple of consultant clients on the side though.
Oh, on that, it was still their clients, right? I was doing the work for their clients. I was like, okay.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But I saw the writing on the wall, and I was just
see.
like, you know, I need to get out of here. I need to serve the client. It's the classic, I felt I could do it better, right? You hear that story a lot.
All right.
And I gave him notice. I told him what I was doing. I trained my replacement, did everything by the book, integrity wise, never, solicit their clients, block their clients, help them retain their clients.
Okay.
Everything possible. Now, they started off as a legal agency, but then they went generalist, and then I don't think they went back to legal, and then poof, they're gone. Right. They didn't, it was just too many changes. And, they just, from a reputation standpoint, and retaining clients, there's warmth and competence is what I say. It's like, relationships and results. You can be a nice guy, and that can take you
a little
somewhere,
ways,
but you need the results too, right? So
exactly.
if you get both of them, it's the true recipe for retention.
Yes.
If you can be a nice guy, you can save clients, or if you do great work, you can save clients. But the classic example is from a competency and not a warmth perspective. And I saw this in an article from Carl Sakis is, when you go to the DMV, nobody wants to go to the DMV. It's the worst experience. Everyone hates that experience, but you get your shit done. You get your tags, you get your driver's license. So from a competency standpoint, they're very good, but maybe not on speed and efficiency, but I'm saying you get the result.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's kind of a tangent thing, but I wanted to be I'm super competitive from the sports side, and I didn't want to settle for mediocrity. I wanted to compete at the top, the highest level. And that's another reason why I opened up my agency.
When you quit, did you quit with, did you get a client and you're like, okay, I got my first client, now I'm going to give my notice? Or, because that's always a tricky transition for aspiring entrepreneurs. They're like, okay, well, do I need to quit my job now? Should I start with a client on the side on the weekends? How much money did you have saved up? Give the aspiring entrepreneur that wants to make the leap a few tips here.
The first thing that I did was I was really intentional about LinkedIn, and I had the accounts that I was managing write me personal recommendations. Now, I was employed by Power Advocates.
Good move.
And those recommendations were for me under that career, but those are testimonials, right? So I got like 20 of them.
Sweet. So
I got a lot of nice things that were said. I tried to build as much on the project management side as possible. I think I was using Basecamp at the time to do, I was very process minded because of, having limited resources. I knew I needed to be able to deliver, but I also was intentional about marketing and sales. So one of the first things I did was I was local and close to St. Louis. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to breakfast or lunch with every single person in the industry I was in the legal industry that I can. All of them, like whoever will have breakfast or lunch with me, I'm going to say, look, I'm new. Here I am. What do you got?
Okay.
And the crazy thing is that was one of the best things I ever did.
How about that?
It's just referrals at certain points in this whole, since I've been an owner. Like maybe I didn't get business right away, but maybe 2 years, in the future I did. And I
Mhm.
stayed connected to some of these individuals and became a really good lead generation source for me. In fact, I would say the first 4 years of business, my main tactic for generating leads was referrals. There's a book called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes.
Mm.
Everyone talks about, your dream 100 clientele list and like account-based marketing, things like that. Well, I took that idea to heart from a referral side. It's
Mm.
like, look, I don't have a giant case study. I don't have these big logos. I'm not going to land these guys, but I can go to all the agencies and other businesses in my industry and say, hey, what clients don't you want? Who can't you help? Like, give me those. What's the stuff you just don't want to do?
Good
I'll do
move.
it. I'll do it.
Nice. Nice.
And that's how I grew in those first few years. And
Was it
it was
tight
a
the first
really
12 months? Was it tight, super tight on budget, or did you have a little money saved up? And were you married at the time?
wasn't married at the time. Budget was tight. I bootstrapped 15 grand. That's it.
It's okay.
I
All
was
right.
giving myself $5,000 a month for 3 months. That's it. And the thing is, though, I need to sign like 2 clients because I could do all the delivery.
Mm.
So it was like, complete margin.
Right.
Right. And so if I could get 2 clients and I, that first month I got 1 and the second month I got 2.
And now you're off to the races.
Off to the races. Yep.
Nice. What were you calling it back then? Had you already named it rankings?
Yeah. So it was
okay.
attorneyrankings.org.
Oh, okay. All right. Why'd you change that? Because you wanted to broaden beyond the legal?
Yeah, that's exactly why. So I was in Vistage. I was in that, CEO peer group.
Yeah.
And I got my business review and I was doing really well. I think I was at like that 1 million mark. And everyone's like, you know what you should do? You should serve other clients, home services and physicians. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I should. So I went and bought rankings.io, changed all my positioning. And then my speed and my marketing slowed down, my business development. I started to lose my identity. I'm like, what the hell happened? I'm like, well, that was dumb. So then I went right back to legal. So it was that temporary learning lesson, like, oh, niching has these advantages that I was unaware of.
For sure it does for SEO. Yes, absolutely. Especially if it's for the listeners that might be ignorant to how the process works, if your budget is tiny as a small service business and you want to try to spend some money on SEO or even paid marketing, AdWords, the more narrow you are, the more laser focused you are on key terms or keywords, the easier it's going to be you may not rank for everything, but you can rank for some specific things. So I totally get it. Yeah. Okay. I was wondering about that because when I saw the website, I'm like, okay, rankings. And then I'm kind of looking at, or not the website, but the URL, and I saw the company name on your LinkedIn. I'm like, all right. And then I looked at the website and I'm like, oh, this is pretty legal focused. And then I clicked on your little microphone on LinkedIn where you can say your name or whatever you want. And it says specifically, I help personal injury lawyer firms rank higher. Or I don't know if I said it verbatim, but it's something like that. And when I heard that, Chris, I was like, damn, that is pretty specific. Okay. But like you said, I mean, that's the magic in ranking, right? If you want to do it that way. I mean, I'm telling you what I see from 30,000 feet, but I get it. I totally get it.
So many advantages, tons of advantages to niching. Everyone thinks about the cons, right? Oh, smaller market cap and it's going to limit me, or I'm doing the same thing repeatedly and I want variation. Or sometimes, if we were talking about Alex, the biggest downside to niching, in my opinion, was made so clear in Alex Hormozy's book, The $100 Million Offers, when it comes to the value equation, is effort and sacrifice. A good offer decreases effort and sacrifice. Sometimes when you niche, particularly a service industry, when I only do SEO, that increases the amount of effort on my client because now they have to hire other digital providers to do PPC design, all these other things, as opposed to one. That's the one downside to niching. I'm aware of it. And you have to account for that with referral partners and just make it easy for your client. But that's a big one. Huge advantages: perception, trust, social proof, perceived higher fees, and copywriting, eliminating waste from an efficiencies and operation standpoint, all different types of things.
Now would probably be a good time. Give us the 3-minute elevator pitch for rankings.io. Just if you're doing the elevator pitch in front of some investors or maybe some potential clients, go for it.
Elevator, geez. I say it's short and sweet. We help elite personal injury lawyers dominate first page rankings. That's what we do. We only do SEO. And we only work with personal injury law firms.
Why only personal injury?
Many reasons. I shouldn't say only. We specialize. We have like a couple clients that are non-PI. The reason is it's completely, when there's saturation and competition, it demands expertise, and expertise you can charge an investment in higher fees, right? If there's no competition for, say, trademark law, you're the only trademark attorney in the city, you don't need someone like me. You can put up a website and a landing page and rank #1. But if you're a personal injury lawyer and there's 1,000 in your city, and you need to rank in the top 3 positions of Google to acquire clicks and organic traffic, you can't just moonlight and think you're going to achieve that naturally. You have to have an intentional strategy to get those results.
Will you hire or will you take on more than one personal injury attorney per city? And if you do, how does that work? Because Johnny's like, hey man, you're doing stuff for Mary and I want to be #1. So how does that work?
I love that question. First of all, I think it's the dumbest thing ever for SEO, and I can't stand it. And other digital marketers think differently about this, but radio, particularly in the legal space, radio and television already own distribution. So it makes sense to give someone exclusive rights because they own the airtime and the TV, the time slots. SEO, yes, I can do content marketing and links, but I'm also constrained to their physical location. We're all sentients. We all have our phone nearby. And if you type in a different niche, best restaurants near me, you're not going to see them 15 miles away. You're going to see them within a few miles of where you're located. And that is the exact same in legal services. So in my opinion, you can serve multiple clients in a location, particularly larger locations. Let's say Houston. Let's say you had a downtown Houston client. You're not going to compete in the same manner with someone 10 miles north in the maps. Having said that, because of the perceived issue by my clients and the struggle to try to educate a majority on this issue, we take 2 per market.
Okay.
And we can say, hey, we can generate an ROI for 2. But what I would like to do is ditch the whole thing, but it would take a lot of, because there's so many agencies to say, oh, we only work with 1. Well, yeah, because you don't have a client there and you don't keep your clients. So there's no opportunity cost loss for you. You're just churning them, right? So you give away exclusivity freely. I keep mine.
Have you ever had a situation where Johnny calls you from Denver and he's like, hey man, I want to use your services. And you're like, listen, I already take care of Mary and Cliff. And he's like, okay, well, what do I need to pay you for you to fire Cliff? Because I want to be your other. Have you ever had that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have that first right of refusal, right? I'm a business person, right? It's business. We had a tough situation recently. I'm not going to lie. And it was like, look, this person's paying X. This person wants to pay 10 times as much, literally 10 times. Well, like, what are you going to do? Like,
what are you going to, I would call my client up and say like, listen, man, can we just have like a real authentic,
radical,
radical. I mean, just a authentic conversation, because it's 10 times more. What do you expect me to do as a business owner? You're a business owner.
Right.
What would you do?
Right. And there's loyalty, right? And there's to some degree, it could be a little bit more. And I would still, there's a loyalty perspective and you build these relationships. But it's entirely different when it's 10x. And
Yeah,
you know, it just,
that's a game changer. That's a game
yeah.
changer.
And even
Uh,
when you have these
yeah.
conversations, they understand.
I'm
Like, I
sure
would
you
do the
get
same thing.
Sure. I'm sure you get calls all the time from other law firms that specialize in other areas or other practice areas, and you turn them down. You'd say, no, I just do personal injury.
So the interesting thing is, you'd be surprised. We don't get a ton of leads from other practice areas because of how heavily positioned it is a PI on our site. So they fast fail. They don't even reach out. They think that, you know, we
Interesting.
can't help them. So we don't get a ton of leads other
Hmm.
practice areas. We will take them if they truly have a need and truly we can help them. And if they have the right investment. Like,
Uh,
there have been some scenarios we worked with the nationwide leader in long-term disability. I mean, he's the number one guy. He, you
okay.
know, we worked with them. We worked with some major divorce attorneys. Um,
Okay.
but
So
in
there are
general,
exceptions. Okay. All right.
it's very small. I think we work with about 45 clients right now, and I think 43 are PI. So
All right.
there
All
are
right.
some exceptions.
How many people on your team?
I think we got about 30 right now, but we have a whole bunch of subcontractors and strategic partners.
Okay. Okay. 30. Well, if you got 30 employees, a lot of your time now as CEO is managing your own people versus actually doing the tactical SEO work, right? I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's more leadership and management, and in fact, we're at this kind of inflection point where, you know, I was talking to
Mhm.
Eric Huberman from Hawk Media, and I think they're, I don't know, 40, 50 million, something like that. And there's this thing that occurs when you're at the 8-figure mark, you know, in that 10 to like $20 million range, where you have to start hiring all these non-revenue generating employees, right? You got to hire,
Right. Those are my least favorite.
you got to hire your HR person, you got to hire your controller,
Yeah.
and you got to hire
Yeah.
all these managers. It's like, Jesus, you know, like, but that happens, and it's a necessity.
Uh,
And you know, I think breaking
Funny.
through that is, it's kind of an interesting level, but that's kind of where we're at. We're at that like 8-figure, you know, trying to get to 20 mil, and
Very good,
that's
man.
what's happening.
Very good. Congratulations on the growth of it. I
Thank you.
love your approach to having a very targeted focus. It's so easy to spread yourself too thin, take on too much, try to do things you're not a specialist at. I mean, how many times have you seen it? I mean, right, over and over and over. I want to get into a couple of outside the lines questions beyond the business before you go, and as we head towards the back end of this thing. But I do want to ask you one more specific SEO type service question, because we get, as a recruiting firm, we get approached by this all the time. And I was a CEO of a couple of $40 billion companies, so I dealt with agencies and marketing people
Nice.
and all of it, right? So I understand the language and how it works. I'm not a marketing expert, but I get it. The most popular statement I get from SEO people is this, you know, they'll say, now listen, this is going to take a while. This is not overnight. I'm not going to get you on page 1 next month. If you'll just pay me for 6 months, eventually, someday, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get you to page 1. I've heard that so many times, Chris. What's your response to that?
They needed to double that.
Oh, double the time frame.
Yeah. So what I say is like, look, you're not going to love hearing this. I was like, but anybody tells you 4 to 6 months, they haven't been in the business. They don't know the industry. Like, it is not, people in a very competitive space. I mean, PI, it's like, look at the billboards that when
Yeah,
you're
right.
driving on the
Oh,
road.
I see them.
Like, and how many reviews? Do you think that your new website is going to rank number 1 through 3 against, you know, the people? No, it's not going to happen in 6 months. Hey, if you give me time, you give me 9 to 12 months, you will see cases and you will see results. Are you going to rank number 1 for car accident lawyer? Probably not. You going to rank number 1 for Lyft and Uber, or you know, maybe semi trucks, you know, some of the less competitive. Yeah.
Okay.
But so I think a lot of those people want to lower the barrier to entry. They think I think if you have a reputation and you're authentic, and this is the biggest tip that I can say for those SEO nerds listening.
All right.
All you people, what you're saying is, hey, my service is $10,000 a month. So when the buyer evaluates that decision, they make that decision based upon $10,000 a month. But you need to get them to think about it's a $120,000 investment. Have them think in an annual investment type of manner. Because if they think of the $10,000 a month, they'll look at it from a cash flow, the too short a time span. And it's the same for attribution, just from marketing strategies in general. You can't, it's difficult to look at them in a monthly. You need to at least look at them in 90-day increments. But you have to change the narrative and have them look at in a longer time manner and just say that, like, look, we need a year. Now, whether or not you do a year-long contract, that's up to you, right? We do month-to-month contracts, but we position that and set expectations that we need 9 to 12 months.
Okay, fair enough. Can I pay you in the 12 months? Can I pay you after the 12 months?
Yeah, let's do it. No, we don't like that. Let's do payment up front.
I always love that. Sometimes I fuck with these guys. These guys that'll call me, they'll send me an email and say, I can do these. Oh my God, leads, page 1, blah, blah, blah. And I always like send them a note back and say, can I pay you after that happens? And then crickets.
Yeah, here's the thing too. Let's just talk about that really quick on that point. Is, because PI attorneys are paid on contingency. So I sometimes hear that, right? Well, why don't you do the SEO? Then I'll pay you after the cases. Well, there are a few SEO companies that exist like that. And what they're going to do is they're going to go to Fiverr and they're going to blast your website with all kinds of shit for hardly any money. And if you rank, cool, they win. But if not, but guess what? Your site's tanked forever. So that's what they do.
Very similar to our business in recruiting, right? There's contingency versus retained firms. And we are a retained firm where people pay a deposit. We have an exclusive and so forth. And I always tell the prospect, I'll say, look, you can bring on a contingency firm tomorrow and they will promise to slam you with resumes in 24 hours and all this other. You're just going to get shit and it's going to waste your time. I promise you.
100%.
Okay. Thanks for that answer. I appreciate it. Sounds like you've been asked that a million times. I appreciate you going down that, down that path. Let me ask you a few other things. You do a great job on social media. Your LinkedIn profile's got 30,000 followers on it, I think. Are you careful with what you put out on social media with this world we're living in right now, where super sensitive and people take sides and sometimes people get canceled and censored and all this shit? Are you careful right now? Or are you like, ooh, I got to protect my 30,000 followers. I don't want to fuck this up. How do you handle it?
That's a really good question. I am a little chicken on some topics. There are some topics that I'll avoid and where others will just go all in on those topics. I do like to be a contrarian. I think because you stand out and you're a little different, but not in a like sinister, evil manner. Like, to give you an example, you've probably heard this: content is king. If anybody's done SEO, content is king. Well, I say content is not king. If you're a personal injury attorney, content is table stakes, because every Chicago personal injury law firm has a car accident lawyer page. So guess what? They all have one. So it doesn't matter if yours is a little better. See what I'm saying? I'm a little contrarian, and it's a different point of view, and it invites engagement. I think you can do that in a lot of industries, and it's just a way to stand out and be a little contrarian
without pissing off half your potential customer base.
Yeah, and I get called everything, right? Because personal injury attorneys are called ambulance chasers, so I get called a lot an ambulance chaser. So I don't know who was the originator of that. It's very clever. But yeah, so social media is consistency, education, entertainment. Each channel is a little different on the strategies, but a lot of consistency and thought leadership.
Do you think social media platforms should be able to just kick people off?
Man, that's a really, should I monitoring what they say? I like the free speech. I like where Elon's going with Twitter. I don't know. I think if they're harassing people and truly causing other people harm, I think that you could have some moderation there. Also, if there's different communities that want to talk about certain topics and people are violating guidelines, you could. But from a platform perspective, I don't know that we want to get in that moderation. That what do you call that? Is it census? Not census.
Censorship.
Censorship. I don't know that. That's one of those topics I probably wouldn't get into, to be honest, Steve, through my community. But yeah, I like the free speech stuff.
Yeah, I'm a First Amendment guy myself, pretty much, right? I mean, unless you're like threatening to like harm somebody,
Yeah.
I'm a First Amendment guy. And by the way, for the record, and I'll get some shit from some of my listeners on this. Yeah, I like what Elon's doing. I liked his answer where he was being interviewed recently. Of course, he's always being interviewed by somebody. And again, I'm not going to quote it exactly, but the lady said something like, "You mean you'll just let people post what they want and without it being filtered or whatever?" And he kind of looks at her with this very puzzled face, and he's like, "Well, yeah, it's First Amendment." Like he looks at her like, "Why would you even ask me that question?" So I kind of like what he's doing. I like that attitude as well. I do think it's important for information flow through the internet to have an open platform for the most part. And we need to be very, very careful as a society who's controlling information flowing through the internet, because if it becomes censored and one narrative and certain groups can't say things, that's not, I don't think that's a world I want to live in. So we need to be, I think we should be very careful with that.
Same.
Okay, man. Chris, congrats. Love the fact that you had the balls to make the jump. You got a nice firm going on here, 30 people involved. I love it. How do I talk you into making Riderflex rank #1 in Colorado for recruiting firms? Can we talk about that offline?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Thanks for being on the Riderflex podcast, my friend. I appreciate it.
Steve, thanks so much for having me. It's been great.